Matthew 11. Every time I go through and I'm looking, the absence of transitions is intriguing to me. And well, last time I talked about just two verses, 25 and 26. And I actually didn't get to 26, so I'm going to do that, and then we'll move forward. The whole chunk is, at that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father. This was a pretty much a quick prayer. Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your good pleasure. I don't want to replow the ground too much, but this little children is not literal. It's figurative, and it's for people who are humble enough to believe about themselves that they don't know everything. And God's economy works in a unique way in this regard, that it is the humble who get it. James wrote, God gives grace to the humble, but he resists the proud. One of the things about little children, as Jesus has spoken it here, and I think part of what his meaning in it is, on this symbol, is that seems like little children have to be taught a certain level of pride. Now, pride resides in all of us. I mean, it's just part of our fallen nature, I think. I wonder, well, this whole thing, the big difference between a prideful and a humble person, it explains a whole lot of God's work in people's lives. Okay, so the humble here. And then Jesus says, for this was your good pleasure. Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that God can, first of all, God can experience good pleasure. He's not a being with no emotion. If you read the Bible very much, you will get to see good and not so good. Well, that's hard to say. If God has an emotion, it can't be not good. But, okay, you see positive and negative emotions in God. That what brings God this good pleasure is somehow helping, letting the humble experience and understand what he's up to, his kingdom. It's not very different from what Jesus said in the Beatitudes. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And then he goes on, all things have been committed to me by my Father. Big deal. Big deal. All things have been committed to me by my Father. See, this is getting ready to be in a very deep theological pond here. The Trinity. That Jesus is the Son of God and part of the wholeness of God. He said, Jesus himself said, I and the Father are one. And that could mean I have the same desires as my Father has, and my Father has the same desires as I have. You know, we are one in intention. We are one in our desires, or it could mean the Father and I, we're one. I mean, but when Jesus descended to the earth from heaven, he gave up. I mean, Paul writes in Philippians that he gave up his rights as the sovereign and became a man. Now, don't, but I think it's good. In a way, it's good for me to be reminded that Jesus, when that happened, Jesus didn't. It's not like Jesus said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'm only human." All things have been committed to me by my Father. All things. This would be physical objects, individuals, ideas. I mean, all. You know that old saying, all means all, have been committed to him by his Father. I think it's worth just a quick pause and the reminder that nothing happens here on earth, in your life, in my life, in the world, geopolitically, economically, racially, you name a category. None of that happens without the knowledge and permission, as well as the direct initiation and cause of Jesus. All things have been committed to him. That I cannot unpack that. My brain is not big enough. Neither is yours. So we take what we can from it. If that means all things, then whatever I am experiencing, good or bad or just blah, well, that's been committed to him by God. All right, he goes on. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Was that double talk? I mean, so no one knows the Son except the Father. No one knows the Father except the Son. Okay. This word, to know, in its original form in Greek, although Matthew probably wrote in Aramaic, but the idea is the same. That word that we have translated as know was the meaning, original meaning, has to do with the deepest level of intimacy. I don't want to make more of it than is actually there, but in the King James Version of the Bible, do you remember this? I remember it as a kid, that Joseph took Mary as his wife, but he knew her not. I'm going, Joseph was a dope. No, that's not, because I didn't, nobody had told me. I was in probably my 30s or 40s before I ran across this idea of to know, meaning the deepest levels of intimacy. Nobody knows Jesus as deeply as the Father does, and Jesus knows God as deeply as God knows him. Well, what we're talking about here is this, Can you tell I'm a little bit at a loss for words? So I'll just call it this divine intimacy between Jesus and the Father, the Son and the Father. And then Jesus tags this. I mean, he's not like, oh, and this too. No, it's part of the whole thought. He says, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Okay. Now, again, we're back in a pretty deep theological pond here. Sometimes I have come across the idea that this is kind of a proof text for the idea of Calvinism, that there are some people that God just didn't choose. And some people will never know God because they weren't chosen. And Jesus says it here. The only people who will know God on any level of depth are people that Jesus chooses to reveal this. Yeah, except here's the deal. Who did Jesus choose to reveal the Father to? If you read the rest of the New Testament, it's pretty clear. Everybody. I mean, Paul writes to Timothy, it is not God's will that anyone should perish, but that all should come to repentance. You can't disconnect that from this idea that Jesus has chosen to reveal God to everyone. But now here's an important part of that. To what level or what depth a person will come to understand God and be in relationship to him. Well, that has to do with the person to whom Jesus reveals God, the Father. How willing am I to understand? How hungry am I? Okay. See, this gets a little bit twisted in my mind, but the key, I think, is back to grace. How would Jesus reveal the Father to any of us except because of his grace? He doesn't do this on a deserved basis. He chooses, in my opinion, he chooses to reveal God to everyone. And he permits everyone to choose whether they desire this or not. And if they do, then on a scale of reason that I don't have the key to. I just know one piece of it. But on some scale of reason, God reveals the Father to people individually. I have friends who I think know God way better than I do. And some of these friends are less educated than I am. And see that, I don't want that to be my pride. I'm just saying they don't have the background and credentials that I've somehow come up with over 71 years. Well, but they know God. Why? Why do they? It seems clear to me they know him better than I do. Well, I can't answer that other than because of God's ultimate wisdom, and through his grace, he has revealed himself to me through Jesus, and whatever my soul, spirit, mind can grasp of that He's made it all available to me, but we're not all equally able to comprehend him. I don't know if that even makes any sense. And sometimes I think it could be because of willingness. As I said, pride is the barrier here. Humility is what makes grace have its effect in our lives. So if you figure this thing out, I would very much appreciate it, you sending me something on it, okay? I butchered it, but it's time to move on. I'm way over time. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.